Walter's sled was creeping slowly away from the school when he remembered his perfume bottle. He knew the delicate glass would never survive in such cold temperatures. The water inside would freeze, and the bottle would shatter. Nobody saw Walter Allen as he jumped down from the sled and hurried back into the school. It took him just a few seconds to grab his bottle, stuff it into his pocket, and rush back outside. But the sleds had vanished, swallowed by the sudden darkness. Walter tried to run into the street, but the wind spun him and knocked him over. He stood up, took 2 steps, and the wind swatted him down again, up and down, up and down. Meanwhile, the snow and ice swarmed around Walter's body like attacking bees. Snow blew up his nose, into his eyes, and down the collar of his shirt. His face became encrusted in ice, and his eyes were soon sealed shut by his frozen tears. He managed to stand one final time, desperate now. But he was no match for this monstrous storm. Once more the wind slammed Walter down. This time he could not stand up, so he crawled himself into a ball, too exhausted to move. He realized that nobody knew that he wasn't on the sleds, huddled among classmates, heading for home. It was as though he had tumbled off Earth and into space, a frozen, swirling darkness. There were other lucky children that day, saved by quick-thinking teachers or more often small miracles. There were the Garber boys, who were lost on the prairie until they glimpsed a familiar tree, enabling them to find their bearings and to get home. There was 11-year-old Stephen Urkel, who was lost, freezing, and nearly blind when he crashed into the side of a barn. Feeling his way to the entrance, he went inside and spent the night crawled up next to a hog whose warmth protected him from the cold. When Walter Allen's father, W.C., discovered that his youngest son hadn't come home from school, he and 4 other men headed back to the school, risking their lives. At the last minute, they allowed Walter's 18-year-old brother, Will, to join them. Will had always watched over his little brother. He refused to stay behind. The search party made its way to the school, but Walter was nowhere to be found. W.C. became so distraught that his neighbors had to carry him back to the sled. Somehow, in the sadness and confusion, they left without Will. Now both Allen boys were lost in the storm. Although Will saw the sleds pull away, he remained focused on his search. He got down on his hands and knees and crawled along the frozen ground, feeling his way across every inch. He could not see nor hear, and the wind made it difficult to breathe. But he kept searching until he bumped into a small heap covered with snow. It was Walter. He was unconscious, but still alive. During the hours that Walter and Will were fighting for their lives, hundreds of other children were caught in the grip of this killer storm. Hundreds never made it. Even decades later, Will Allen could not explain how he managed to carry his unconscious brother through the blowing snow, or how he managed to find his way home. It was as though the storm's fury had entered Will's veins, giving him the strength to walk against the wind, to rise up when he fell, to hold his little brother tight in his arms. They arrived home to the jubilation of their parents. Over the next few hours, Walter drifted in and out of consciousness as his family hovered over him. They warmed him slowly. They quieted his shivers. At first, his body was so numb that he didn't feel the tiny cuts on his legs from the shards of glass sticking out of his pockets. It wasn't until later that night that Will realized his beloved perfume bottle had broken during the storm after all. Of course, by then it did not matter. Walter understood something infinitely more precious survived the blizzard, something that could never be replaced. Walter himself.